Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're on the world. This is Augie of the Blago Blabber podcast. I'd like to welcome everyone to yet another edition. I think this is 14th, 15th, maybe even 16th episode that we're on. I'd like to thank everyone from feedback from last week when I had my friend Yusuf come drop by and, we discussed some NBA action. Most notably the All-Star game that was approaching at that time. An hour and 14 is much easier to record when it's two people as opposed to one. It's very difficult to talk, and I was telling him off the air kind of. It's very difficult to talk for longer than 25-30 minutes when you're doing a podcast by yourself. When you have guests, it's just much easier because you kind of split up your time, and one guy talks for half the time, the other guy talks for the other half. Or what I want to do is when I have guests, I want to give them more time to speak, than I would, because I'm always on here. I have more of a chance to, show up on my own podcast, so to say. Whereas, I appreciate people taking the time and coming to talk to me. So their time is very valued to me. So I'm obviously going to let them, talk for majority of the time, or however long they want, because I know how hard it is for people, to kind of set their life aside and come jump on a podcast and talk sports. So I'm always willing to let them talk however long they want. Whether if they want to talk for 15 minutes, 20, 25, hour and a half, I don't care. I just appreciate everyone taking the time to, come on the podcast and talk sports. Just kind of shoot the shit with me for however long it is. And like I said, I just value everyone's time. So thanks to him. And I've known him for a long time. And I told him whenever he wants, he can come on the podcast. The trade deadline, NBA is fast approaching. If he wants to come and talk trades, that's fine with me. We'll set up a time. We could do that prior to NBA playoffs. We could do that. We could do an NBA mock draft prior to the draft. We could do more than one mock draft if that's, what he has time to do. If anyone else listening to this, if you want to drop by on the podcast, let me know. Give me a date and time that works for you. Give me some topics that you want to discuss so we can kind of be ready for the show before we start. Just look up stats or whatever the storylines may be. So we're ready to go and ready to roll when I start recording. But again, thanks to him for coming by. Anyone else listening to this, if you want to come on the podcast, please let me know. We can work out a time. We can talk about sports. If you want to incorporate your life into this, that's fine as well. But always willing to talk sports with people, especially people I've known for such a long time. And I've had a number of people reach out to me. And we just kind of got to sit down and get the dates in order and start times and stuff like that. So, welcome everyone back to another episode of This Week in Sports. Last week I didn't do one just because I did the session with Yusuf. And I didn't want to, not that I didn't want to do another one, but I thought that the sports world was kind of slow last week. So I didn't want to kind of take up any of my personal time and anyone else's time. So I'm going to do one for this week. And there has been some storylines this week. So I want to start off with that. I want to kind of jump from sport to sport a little bit. And yeah. So I think it only makes sense to start off with what I would say is the biggest news, at least in the North American side of sports, and that's the Dak Prescott extension. So a sigh of relief for all Cowboy fans. You kind of know where your team is headed towards for the next number of years, with Dak being signed to a new deal. We've kind of put everything to rest with the franchise tag and stuff like that. And I think franchise tagging a guy twice, it would only make sense for him to leave after those two franchise tags, because that just shows me a lack of commitment from the organization. And I get that you want to save as much money as possible, but tagging a guy for 2 years and then signing him to a long-term extension, I don't know if a lot of guys would take that. So for everyone who's saying, Dak's here, but there's still not much pressure on him to perform, you got to be kidding me. He's earning $40 million, and he has a lot of guaranteed money. No pressure. You're making $40 million. There has to be pressure. I like how the NFL, I guess the chase for QBs is kind of starting to take shape now. So we have Dak who signed. We have Cam Newton signed. I'm going to get to that later on. There's still obviously teams who have quarterbacks currently, but they could be looking to go different ways. So, for example, maybe San Francisco, Houston, obviously. What's going to happen with the New York Jets? Teams like that. Chicago Bears. They're in the room. Rumors are that, they're pushing hard for Russell Wilson. So we'll see what happens with that. But, with Dak Prescott, they have all the offensive weapons now. They have Dak. They have Elliott. They have one of the best receiving cores in the league. Their offensive line is good. Now, come the draft, they can kind of focus on the defense. And I know that their secondary isn't that great, and pretty much defense all around isn't that great. So that's something they're going to have to, excuse me, something that they're going to have to work on drafting. And obviously there's free agents out there as well, but I think they're performing against the cap. So they might be in a little bit of a tough position. But with Dak here, there's pressure, man. It's a lot of money to give to a guy. You can't say, okay, well, we'll be satisfied with, 20 to 23 touchdowns and anything less than 10 picks. Now there's expectations. It's Dallas. It's the biggest team in the NFL. They haven't won a Super Bowl in a very long time. And now it's time for them, to come on and perform and show what they can do. And I think being in a favorable division, at least as of right now, is only going to help them. So, Giants have a decent defense and they have some offensive tools. But, the quarterback situation is kind of a question mark. Washington has a great defense, but again, the quarterback is a question mark. So, you're kind of looking for answers on that side of the ball. But, Philly just got rid of their quarterback in Carson Wentz, a year or two after they signed him to a big-time extension. And now, they got Jalen Hurts. Apparently, Jalen Hurts is their guy going forward. But we'll see what happens in the draft. So, yeah, it's their division to lose right now. There's absolutely no reason why the Dallas Cowboys can't win that division with what they currently have. Obviously, with the other teams, we're going to have to wait, free agency, draft, and then, we can evaluate where they are, who could possibly challenge, if Dallas is still the favorite, although I think they will be. And then, we could kind of go from there to draw conclusions. And obviously, by the time free agency is done and by the time the draft is done, we're going to have a clearer picture of starting quarterbacks from around the league. Not just that division, but what's going to happen with, some of the teams that I mentioned. What's Houston going to do? Are they going to trade Deshaun Watson? What's going to happen with the Jets? Are they going to keep Sam Darnold, or are they going to trade him? San Francisco, are they going to keep Jimmy G? Or are they going to trade him? And stuff like that. We're just going to have to wait for those answers. And by May, we should have a clear picture of what is going to happen going forward. Cam Newton stays with the New England Patriots. This was a little bit of an interesting one. I didn't think that... Actually, I don't know what I thought. After the year that he had, I didn't think that he would be back, but he is. And I don't blame them. I think they're drafting something like 14th, 15th. And, it's a top-heavy quarterback kind of draft. So it's pretty much Lawrence, and then after Lawrence, it depends. Some guys are big on Trey Lance. Some guys aren't. Fields, it all depends. Feels like, 1 week it's this guy, another week it's a different guy, but I'm old enough to remember in December when we were talking about Justin Fields being the guy drafted over Lawrence first overall, and now we're kind of saying, well, is he even going to be that good of a quarterback? Like, I get that the media has to create some kind of storyline, so, we don't say, oh, Lawrence is first overall in December, and we kind of keep that storyline for the next 4 or 5 months. I wouldn't be surprised in April if someone comes out, well, Justin Fields had this, and, he could be pushing to go first overall now, and, like, is Jacksonville really going to keep the pick? What if they trade back and stuff like that? Like, we're going to hear those storylines as the draft approaches, but I think New England is, far off from getting a quarterback in this draft just because of their position. In terms of moving up, they probably can't do too much of that because they don't have a quarterback to trade if they wanted to move back to move up. And even like the Deshaun Watson stuff, like if they were to get Deshaun Watson, well, they have no QB to give up for Deshaun Watson, which is probably how a lot of Deshaun Watson trades are going to go, unless you have a team that's super stacked on like defense or wide receivers where you can, offload a wide receiver, a defensive player, and like 3 first-round draft picks. But New England just doesn't have all that to give up. So maybe not so surprising that Cam Newton stayed with the Patriots, even though I kind of was, like I just said, I was kind of surprised. I don't know why. I think I probably just got fooled by some of the rumors as well. People were saying that he might sign here, he might go there, what if he goes here, but what if he gets traded there, stuff like that. So I think that's kind of, so to say, brainwashed me in the process to think that he would end up elsewhere. And he's making a lot more money than he did last season. And, Belichick obviously sees something in him. Maybe, I know after his COVID scare last season, he wasn't really the same guy. So hopefully this year he can get it together and play a lot better. And, they weren't that far off from the playoffs. Like, they beat a lot of quality opponents, and they lost some games that they probably should have won. Like, I remember when they played against my Buffalo Bills where Cam Newton fumbled it, fortunately for us. But they were already in field goal territory, and he fumbled it. Buffalo recovered, and that was the end of the game. But I don't think their team is as bad as their record showed, even though their record wasn't that bad. And they have a lot of guys coming back this season. Like, we sometimes forget that they had a lot of guys sit out last season. And it's something I constantly have to remember because I'm just not used to, guys sitting out seasons, because usually we have normal seasons where there's no COVID and stuff. So it's something that I have to be reminded of as well. That guys did sit out, and it's a lot of their key players that sat out. So their last season was kind of like almost like a freebie, like whatever happens. Because they did have a lot of guys on their defense sit out. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in terms of the draft. They haven't drafted wide receivers very well, which is something that they're going to need. Maybe they address those needs in free agency, but we're going to have to kind of wait and see what happens with that and Cam Newton going forward. But I guess overall it was a good acquisition because you kind of know what you're going to get. New England was probably already working on what they're going to do with Cam next season, or if he did return, because it's kind of like a feeling out process, what he can do, his strengths and weaknesses, and what he can work on in the off season, and then hopefully he comes back 2021-22 season and he does even better for their sake. But yeah, I don't think New England is an organization that would have signed him to an extension if they weren't sure of what they were getting back from Dak. The next thing I wanted to talk about was March Madness, or if you want to say even the conference tournaments. So throughout the season, just like the NFL season, a lot of games were, postponed because of positive tests or things like that, health protocol. And you know what? During the season, you kind of think to yourself, in other sports, games can get pushed back. Like, games can be pushed back. If we look at the NHL, we reschedule. NBA, we can reschedule. But NCAA tournament play is a little bit different because there's strict guidelines and, start and finish dates because of March Madness. So we can't just, postpone the tournament playoffs because, well, they have to end by a certain date because, we have the selection show coming up and then the start and the end date of March Madness. So, Duke had to pull out of the ACC tournament. So did Virginia because, positive tests. Kansas Jayhawks had to do the same thing. But I think Kansas and Virginia were in a little bit of a different situation than Duke because whether they had won their respective tournaments, they probably would have been in March Madness. Whereas Duke, if Duke didn't win their tournament, they weren't going to be in. And if they won their tournament, obviously there would be an automatic seed or an automatic entrant, automatic berth in March Madness. And due to Duke's record, now that they can't participate in the tournament, they're not going to make it. So it's kind of left you wondering, like, if they were able to stay, you never want to say, even though the record isn't that good, but you never want to say a team doesn't have a chance at winning. It's Duke after all. Rich program, rich history. They've won March Madness a bunch of times. So it wouldn't be fair if we counted them out. But yeah, like what happens in March Madness if, any team really makes a run, Sweet 16 and then, they get a positive test and now they're out of the tournament because of a positive test. It's something I actually haven't really thought of at all until yesterday. And I was thinking to myself, man, there's so many teams that were, if they had just advanced to even the second round of their conference tournament, they would have been in March Madness. And now, they have to bow out because they have positive tests and now they have nothing to look forward to. And that's the end of their season. It's a really sour way of ending your season. No game. Usually something you can't really control. It's just a crazy way to have your season end when, you prepare for, any conference tournament and you're like, listen, if we can win 2 or 3 games or if we win this tournament, we're in March Madness. So let's give it our all. And then you don't even get a chance to play because there's a positive test. That's crazy to me. And it sucks for a lot of players. It really sucks for the guys who can't return next season, like the seniors. Man, must be an awful feeling. Where you can't even go out on, leaving it all out on the court because, now you can't play. You can't participate in the tournament. So that part sucks. The protocol for March Madness, and I did a YouTube video today, I don't really know what the protocol is, but I assume that the matches are just going to get canceled and, the team that's kind of left will advance to the next round, I guess. And this, there's a chance for a lot of upsets, and he use air quotes as I say upsets because, a 15 could beat a number 2 without even playing. God forbid, there's a positive test on the number 2 team and the 15 goes through. So it's going to be interesting. And I can't see this going off without a team testing positive or a player testing positive and a team gets thrown out. Unless NCAA is going to do something about it and, maybe leaves. Maybe they'll have a day open where they play. Like I said, I don't really know the protocol. I've looked into it a little bit. I couldn't really find anything. So I assume it's just going to go, if you have positive tests, sorry, you're out and the other team advances. But what happens if you advance and, then you find out that you tested positive and then do we just give the other team a bye into the next round? Like, what's going to happen? It sucks. And there's going to have to be an asterisk in this March Madness, especially if there's positive tests, if teams have to bow out because they have positive tests. So it's going to be very interesting. Also, Georgetown won today. Good for Georgetown. It's been a rough few seasons. And college basketball is better with a good Georgetown Hoyas team. So shout out to Patrick Ewing as well, leading that team back to March Madness. And it's crazy, Patrick Ewing, and I know stuff happened at MSG and it's getting embarrassing at this point. Patrick Ewing, like I never think of centers or power forwards as being coaches. I don't know why. I have no idea why. but I never think of them as being coaches. And here he is. It's kind of like soccer. I never think of forwards, strikers as being coaches. It's always like the defensive midfielders and like center backs who I can see as coaches. It's such a weird thing that I think it's crazy. But shout out to Patrick Ewing, Juwan Howard as well. Holy, that Michigan team is balling. I know they lost today, but they're off to March Madness too, and it's only a matter of time before Juwan Howard gets some NBA calls, I think, and before he's in the NBA. And same goes for Patrick Ewing. And if they're half as good as they were as players, man, they're going to have good coaching careers. Switching gears, some Europa League. So for my soccer fans that know, round of 16 of Europa League started on Thursday, and everything has, for the most part, I would say, worked out as we have expected. All the favorites are pretty much in control for the most part. Going in the second leg, Ajax 3-0 over Young Boys. Villarreal 2-0 up over Dynamo Kiev. United and Milan is 1-1. And Milan got the away goal very late. So fortunate for them. Slavia Prague Rangers, that's 1-1 after the first match. Going to Scotland, that's going to be a very good... I think I might actually watch that return leg, because that could be a very good match. Slavia Prague has been outstanding this season in Europa League, if you've been following. Got out of the group. They won their last stage match against around the 32 against Leicester City, who was very good this season in the Premier League. Granada 2-0 up over Molde. Arsenal 3-1 over Olympiacos, thank God. Roma 3-0 up over Shakhtar Donetsk, and Tottenham 2-0 up over Dinamo Zagreb. And that's not over yet. Dinamo Zagreb is a very good team. Tottenham can't underestimate them in Zagreb next week. So like I said, that Slavia Prague Rangers match is going to be, I think, one to watch. That could be a very good tie. Rangers have already won the Scottish League, something like 20 points ahead of Celtic at this point. So they've had a very good season. First title in 10 years. For those who know, they were relegated to 4th or 5th tier a number of years ago, worked their way up, and now they're back. Liverpool legend Steven Gerrard is their coach. He's already being linked to some bigger jobs, most notably Liverpool. And it's kind of like a domino effect, because Joachim Low is leaving the German national team. And some people, there's rumors that Jurgen Klopp could possibly take over Germany, but he's said he doesn't want that as of right now. And if he were to leave for Germany, then Steven Gerrard would kind of be the guy for Liverpool, even though I think Gerrard came out and said this week that he doesn't want that job just yet. He doesn't feel like he's qualified yet to lead Liverpool, and I agree with him, and fair play to him. It takes a lot to say something like that, especially when you're a club legend. And if he came in and lost 10 matches in a row and he got sacked, fans would still love him. But he's absolutely right. I think he needs another challenge after Rangers, and then he could possibly look at Liverpool after that. But good for him. He's done an exceptional job with Rangers. And Olympiacos, that Olympiacos and Arsenal return leg. Remember, Olympiacos beat Arsenal last year. The 3 away goals is very good. I wouldn't count out Olympiacos. And like I said, Dinamo Zagreb has a lot of good players, and they sell a lot of their players for a very good euro, I should say. So Tottenham, the job is most likely done, but all it takes is one crazy goal to go in, and Dinamo has some confidence going forward, and you never know. Second one comes, and then now you got your back against the wall. Ajax against Young Boys is pretty much done. Manchester United, AC Milan is going to be pretty good, and I've watched a lot of AC Milan due to them playing Red Star in the earlier round of 32. And from what I saw, a lot of the comments that AC Milan wasn't really good on Thursday either. So, too bad, as much as I hate to say this, that Manchester United couldn't finish them off. But it's going to be a crazy return leg. And now United has to go out and score, because they're going to be in Italy, and AC Milan has the away goal. So pretty much if all the favorites are doing really well right now. So it looks like all the favorites as of right now will go through. The last topic I wanted to cover today was, I just want to talk about the Embiid injury. Man, when I saw it, I was like, here we go again. Because he has been injury prone since he came into the league, 6-7 years now, 5-6, whatever it is. Luckily, it doesn't seem to be that serious. Could miss a few games. This is probably it for him in terms of MVP. He had missed, I believe, 6 or 7 games prior to this injury, so he's going to miss another, let's say, 3, 4, 5. So he's going to miss, upwards of 10, 11, 12 games already. And in a shortened season, it looks even worse. I mean, obviously, if you're a Philly fan, you just want a healthy Embiid come playoffs, and you never know what can happen. But I mean, if he's injured, then they don't have much of a chance. So hopefully, I mean, from what I've heard so far, it's not that serious. Hopefully, he is ready for the playoffs. But like I said, once I heard that, I was like, damn, another one for Embiid. And he's a big boy. Like, his falls are gonna hurt. And it just feels like this year, Doc Rivers has unlocked something in Embiid that we haven't seen. And it's great to see him living up to his full potential, even though he's a divisional rival of the Raptors. Inside, outside game, he can defend. What more can you ask? He's as modern of a big man, I think, as you can get, because he can step out and hit the three. Just keep the defense honest. He can hit the mid-range a little bit. He can go inside. He can block shots. He can play defense. He can hit free throws. Like, he can do everything. Everything. And when you add him to guys like Ben Simmons, I mean, you have a pretty damn good team. Tobias Harris, and feel like Embiid is taking out like 5-6 years of frustration in one season. So good for him, but hopefully he's ready to go. And I mean, in terms of MVP race, I mean, who cares? I mean, if you told Philly fans right now, well, you guys, if you could go forward and you could see who wins the title, and you tell them, listen, you guys won the title, but Embiid didn't win the MVP, regular season MVP, who cares? We won a title, man. Doesn't matter. But like I said, he's pretty much out of the MVP race. And that sucks because a lot of people felt that he was in pole position. I thought that LeBron was in pole position. But now if he's out, LeBron is still the guy there. Jokic is having a really good season. Luka Doncic is starting to turn it up a little bit now. And there's other guys in the league I'm sure I'm missing, like Giannis, but a lot of people say Giannis can't even win it this year because he won it already. But it's going to be an interesting race. But I think even the people who had Embiid winning it, I think now they're going to have to start coming to the LeBron side because of the amount of games that Embiid is going to miss this season. And, Philly just might sit him as a precaution, even if he's ready to come back after like 3-4 games, just to make sure, everything is good to go for the playoffs, and hopefully he's healthy. So thank you guys for tuning in to another show on this beautiful Saturday night. I'll see you guys again next week. Like I said, I'm going to try and have more guests come through, and where we can kind of make the sessions even a little bit longer. Because right now, even this one's 29 minutes, 30 minutes. So hopefully we'll have more people come and talk to me about sports. And I guess I'll see you guys again next week.